you're motivated in the beginning and that wears off and then you stop and then you look back at it a few months later and you're like, I wish I stuck with that. And you end up in this endless loop of starting and stopping and never truly reaching whatever goal you have tried to set out for yourself.
Something like picking up a rope or having a kettlebell at your house or a sandbag, you're just lowering the barrier of entry. You're lowering that everyday friction of like just trying to figure out how to get started. And you're like, I got to start getting ready for work, but I can take a minute or two just to pick up that sandbag that's over there. Muscle growth takes a while. One of the best things you can do with motivation is to try to just lower the amount of it that you need. You shouldn't always need like a monumental amount of motivation.
I think it's important to use some of the tactics that we're going to be getting into here to kind of help you build a level of consistency so that you can actually reach that goal and break new goals.
All right. We're talking today about some motivation.
Motivization.
Yeah.
Let's get some motivational.
We are, I think like for me, one way to deal with motivation, and I've said this before, is to try to figure out ways to eliminate it in the first place. So to me, sometimes like motivation would be like, let's say let's say the three of us are like going on a trail run somewhere. Mm-hmm. Well, I might need a speech for that because I haven't run in a couple months now.
Yeah.
And I might need to like search for like motivation. You guys are like, we're going to do this like 5 mile. Like for some reason, both you guys are hyped up about it. I don't know why you're hyped up about it, but you're hyped up. And I'm kind of like almost a little scared or intimidated. Like, oh shit. Like I haven't done this. We're going on a trail run. I don't know how far. I don't know how much elevation. Mm-hmm. You kind of get yourself into a little bit of a panic. And for some things, you need a little bit of motivation, need a boost. But like, how do you eliminate motivation? Not completely eliminate it all the time, but how do you kind of bring it down? Well, you can bring down your level of motivation by just making things a little simpler, making things a little bit easier. In this case of like going and doing that run, if you guys said, hey, we're going to go do this run and it's at the end of October, I can start to train myself for it so that when the time comes, I don't really need to be all hyped up.
Yeah.
I just feel ready. Mm-hmm. Much like you with jujitsu. You're probably not as nervous, not as intimidated, even though the level of your opponents continues to rise. You probably feel a little bit more comfortable. You're like, all right, the training's behind me. I know what I know. And here we are. Now we're just going to find out what I learned.
Yeah. I think this topic is, because we're going to be talking about a few different things, but I think it's really important because there's a lot of us who you start something and then you're motivated in the beginning. You are excited in the beginning and that wears off and then you stop. And then you look back at it a few months later and you're like, I wish I stuck with that. Right. And then you don't really go back. And you end up in this endless loop of starting and stopping and starting and stopping and never truly reaching whatever goal you have tried to set out for yourself. So, which is why I think it's important to use some of the tactics that we're going to be getting into here to kind of help you build a level of consistency with whatever it is you're trying to do so that you can actually reach that goal, but not just reach it, continue to reach and break new goals. Because like for both of us, we've been doing a lot of this stuff for a very long time. And I think one thing that I'm personally proud at both of us here is that we haven't necessarily stopped. You know what I mean? We haven't gotten out of shape. We've maintained certain things. We've progressed certain things. And one can say, oh, it's easy for you. This is what you do. And I'm not going to dispute that. But at the same time, being able to constantly develop new skills is not an easy thing for anybody. So there's a reason why we've been able to do that. And I think it's because of some of what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, we have a very different lifestyle than the person that works a 9 to 5, or the person that has a manual labor job, a person that's roofing. They're out in the sun all day. Like we definitely recognize that. And for those people, they probably do need a little bit of hype to go to the gym. They need something to be excited about.
Yeah.
But something to be excited about, in my opinion, would be something novel, something new. Like, so maybe just, it doesn't have to be completely different than.
Talking about one of these gimmicks that we're doing?
Yeah. Pick up a rope. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's completely abandons what you have done before. However, something like picking up a rope or having a kettlebell at your house or a sandbag, some of those things you were mentioning before the show. having some of that stuff like outside, having some of that stuff in some sort of convenient spot if you're in an apartment to where you can get to it and you can utilize it. That's just going to make things easier. You're just lowering the barrier of entry. You're lowering that everyday friction of like just trying to figure out how to get started. And what will happen is you go outside, you let your dog outside to go to the bathroom or whatever, or you're just getting outside trying to get some morning sunlight, and you're out there and you're like, shit, I got to start getting ready for work. Like, but I can take a minute or two just to pick up that sandbag that's over there.
Yeah.
Have the sandbag that's outside that you want to use at your convenience be fairly light. Have it be one that's fairly easy so that it's enticing. Don't have the 250 over there. You'll be like, nah, not today. If it's something that is fairly easy for you to move and pick up, you're going to find yourself picking it up. Maybe you shoulder it, you put it down. You're like, all right, well, that felt pretty good. Next thing you know, you might start just moving around a little bit more, and you don't get a full workout in. You're headed off to work, but you got in some movement practice before the day even started.
Makes a big difference. I think, oh, Jesus. White Jesus, I need to pick you back up.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got red hair.
All right. My ginger Jesus. Now, I think the first big concept right here is removing friction. And I think we can do this in multiple ways. What you mentioned right there in terms of having something laying out is good. One thing that I do is I notice that, like, you know, I have this 300-pound sandbag and I look at it some days, I'm like, nah, you know what I mean? But what I did is because I want to touch that bag every day, I have a personal goal of just touching that bag, picking it up in some way, shape, or form every single day. So instead of having it lay on the ground, I put it on top of another sandbag because it's like
Boost it up a little bit.
Yeah, because now, like, you don't realize how long of a distance it is from the ground to that hip area. But if I can come halfway and just get those partial repetitions in, get that feeling of dealing with the weight of that bag, it also like increases my chances of just going and taking it for a quick walk and coming back with it because it's a little bit higher. Whereas the stress of having to pick it up from the ground is just so much more, right? So if this is something you can do with lighter and heavier loads. Like, I'll have my 200 on the ground and those on the ground because there's no mental friction for me having to go pick those up. At this point in my level of strength, I don't need motivation to have to pick that up. For that 300-pound bag, it's like, I know there's a physical cost right now if I have to go pick that off of the ground. So how can I still get that stimulus without having to pick it from the ground? So that's one way of removing the friction of being able to work with that tool. And you can take this idea into
How long have you been doing that for?
Oh, it's been maybe a month and a half now.
So that might be something that you may do for a while, but the odds of you doing it every day for the rest of your life are probably low, right?
No, but like one thing I think about is this. It's like a year and a half or 2 years from now, the friction of picking it off the ground will probably be so minimal that like there's minimal friction there just because I'm so much stronger, right? So it's one of these things that as you're building a level of strength, and for some of you, that's a 150-pound sandbag, right? So put it on a little stool, put it on something where you can just like, it's less stressful on yourself because it's right there. And I look at that with like everything, the rings in the kitchen, right? I want to develop a better skill of hanging and calisthenic ability. And if I didn't have those things there, it would be much harder for me to build these skills. I know that a lot of us have gym memberships, and it's good to have a gym membership, especially if you have like a specific program you're doing, et cetera. But the reason I think that even if you have a gym membership, you should still have something at home is because movement, in my opinion, shouldn't just be for the gym. You know, it shouldn't just be when we're working out in the gym. We should try to see if we can get some form of movement in other parts of the day that are different from the gym, because that's just going to help us feel better. I think it'll also help us do more and develop more capacities over time.
I was listening to something from Lane Norton recently and also some stuff from Stan Efferding. And both guys said the exact same thing. They said the diet plan that's going to work is going to be the one that you're going to follow. Compliance is a science, is Stan Efferding saying. And the same thing is true with your exercise. Stan also mentioned, he said the best exercise is the one that you'll do.
Yeah.
So I could sit here and talk to you about all these different things that you should do and you could do, and all the things you're missing out on by not lifting weights, but maybe you don't really like lifting weights. You know, so you have to like find other stuff. And that's why maybe you feel like, a kettlebell isn't the same as like lifting weights in the gym. Maybe you feel like a sandbag's a little different. Maybe you feel like lifting stones is a little different. Or some of the stuff that you showed that woman, maybe we can bring some of her videos up. Angela, where she was doing the sandbags and the kettlebells and all that stuff. I mean, it just looks like she's having a blast.
And I want to say I appreciate Angela so much because she's built so many different skills, not just by working in the Stronger Human, because she's in the Stronger Human community. She's someone that's just curious about so much. So she's learned from many people, many different people. And she's, I think right here, she's doing 55 squats with her partner, and she's doing some sandbag stuff with her partner here. But it's like one of those things where you'll see her doing sandbags, you'll see her juggling a kettlebell, you'll see her doing maces, you'll see her doing landmine work. And yeah, you're right. She's just having a blast. But it's one of those things where I wouldn't assume that Angela needs to bring about crazy amounts of motivation to do what she does. And I think one of the reasons is because she has many different things that she's getting good at outside of just like the main focus of many people who start training, just gaining muscle and putting weight on the bar. It's like she feels better.
Yeah, look at
her smiling right there too. You know what I mean?
The motivation to go to like, no one really wants to go to like a dental appointment.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Especially if you have bad news. If you were there previously and they're like, hey, you got to come back and we need to rip your face apart.
Yeah.
You don't really love that, right? But it's an appointment. You know, so by doing things, by having some sort of structure, some sort of strategy on when you're going to train. For myself, I could wake up and I could be like, oh, my back's kind of tight. I don't have a podcast today. I'm going to work out later. You know, I could choose when I work out. I have the luxury of doing that, but not everybody does have that. For people that have a 9 to 5, for people that have where they work Monday through Friday and they have the weekends free, I always try to recommend. I know those are your days off. I understand those are your days off, but man, what a leg up you can have by training every Saturday and Sunday. That could be huge for you. And maybe you just, again, I realize it's your day off. You're trying to spend time with your family, but nobody's really doing much at 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. You want to sleep in a little bit. Maybe you work out at 10. I have a family, and you know, the whole thing with my kids growing up while I was powerlifting and stuff was as long as I was like done with shit by like noon or 1 o'clock, it was fine. And then I still spent the whole rest of the day with my family. But you just have to figure out a way to make it work. And for some people, there's some big sacrifices. I have some family members, they'll work out at like 5 in the morning. I have a lot of friends that will work out at 4:30 in the morning. You know, they'll find a time. But if you are able to work out on whatever days you have off, I know some people even work the weekends. Some people work 6 days a week. Some people, you know, they're working a lot. But whatever day off you have, I think is a great day to get some training in. And then if you can pick up 1 or 2 extra ones during the week, so you're rested, because your sleep, which we talk about all the time on the show, man, what a detrimental hit to your motivation to not have sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you walked in today and you didn't have hardly any sleep, you would have been like, guys, you know.
Yeah, I'd be a total bitch.
Yeah, right. Or same thing with me. If I was like super tired, I'd, you know, just, you don't have the same energy. You don't have the same vibe.
Yeah.
Like everything's different. So it's hard to, I mean, there's a lot of science behind this too. And they research where your decision-making skills just absolutely suck when you don't have the sleep that you need. So your decision-making skills for your diet, your decision-making skills for your, as soon as your decision-making skills for your diet go out the window, then sometimes your training goes with that. That happens for a lot of people. They start the day with a bagel and cream cheese when normally they're more on point. Normally they're cooking for themselves or something. And then that training session they wanted to get after work, you know, they had a burrito at lunch. The burrito was a little bit too big and there's burping it up. And then they're like, I'm not going to get that training session in that I need. So your whole day can be sideswiped by a lot of these stresses of work, of relationships and all these different things. But it can really get clobbered by not having sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something to obviously make sure, because if you don't have good sleep, you won't, you know, talk about motivation that we're talking about here. You won't even be able to muster that, at least in my opinion. And maybe some people are just that much better at mustering motivation with the lack of sleep. But I know that I need to get good sleep so that I don't have to try to motivate myself to do the things I know I should do for myself.
You and I will skip out on the stuff that we like to do to make sure our sleep gets back on track.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't go to jujitsu, right?
Nah,
like, yeah, I wouldn't. I might still exercise in some way, but I'm gonna exercise way differently if I'm not rested.
Absolutely. I'd get some movement in, but you're totally right. So that's one big mover. I think another thing just to pay attention to here is a level of maybe some variability. I think I was just mentioning that earlier. But if you have one single goal, it can sometimes get a little bit monotonous. It can, and you know what? I don't necessarily want to say that that's a bad thing, because some people, it's like running's their goal. So they run every day, everything's for running. Some people, muscle building's their goal. So all of their workouts look the same when it comes to that, right? But I think at a certain point, you kind of get a little bit tired of that. You know what I mean? Maybe when I was younger, it was just about all muscle. And maybe that's a phase that you're in. But again, at a certain point, I think you realize that there's a bit more to your personal health than purely just stacking muscle on your frame. And if you're finding that it's difficult for you to, I guess, have that same amount of vigor for your training sessions as you used to, then think about what are some different skills I can try to build. You know, maybe that is picking up a little bit of running and working on some cardio, because then you'll have something else that on the days that you're not lifting, right? You go and you do some type of running activity that's going to improve your cardio. Could be on an exercise bike, could be on a sled, could be on a run, could be some pickleball or sport. But having other things that will benefit your fitness outside of just your gym training sessions, I think that's a very, very big deal, because you're then going to be able to see progress in a lot of potential different areas. I think that's one thing that happens, because people see you picking up all these different things and they're like, Mark's picking up another gimmick and another gimmick and another gimmick. But I think it'd be good if people were to be able to hear why you are picking up some of these different things and what you're noticing from it for yourself.
Because I'm going to make products and sell people on it. That's what it's all about. You know, I just love some different things. You know, it's fun to, you know, play around with some different things. I also really like the idea of like learning a skill set.
Yeah.
Like I'd still like to learn jujitsu, but I just am not ready to commit to it at this time. Sometime in my 50s, I'll probably do some jujitsu or some type of grappling. I'd like to learn the skill. And I've known that about myself for a long time. Years, you know, when I was a kid, I wanted to learn how to box. And so I spent a couple years learning how to strike and learning how to box. And that was really useful to me. But nowadays, I just like the new stuff. I like the novelty of it. I like the fact that it's a new skill. I also kind of like the fact that I'm not very good at a lot of these things. I posted a video yesterday of just me doing some pull-ups, and somebody's like, man, these are really weak pull-ups. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm working on it. Like and for how bad I am at pull-ups still, I've had a major improvement recently. And believe it or not, the big improvement for me with my pull-ups has been some of my mobility, like through my rib cage. I have like hardly any mobility through the rib cage, just enough to get an arch for like a bench press.
Gotcha.
That's about all I got. But when I first started kind of messing with pull-ups more recently, when I would hang from the bar, I would get like a pull all the way from my abs all the way through my rib cage. Yeah. It was nuts. I was like, holy crap. And so you can see, like when I do the pull-ups, my hips are more forward. I'm not able to like keep them back. But as I work on this skill, as soon as that starts to get a little bit better, the pull-ups are just going to get easier and easier and easier. And they got a lot easier from losing a little bit of weight and stuff like that too. But trying to master something, you know, I can't really say I'm a master of much of anything other than I mastered the bench press and I mastered the squat. Like I did. It took a lot of time. It took a long time. I sucked at squats. Squats were like my worst thing. I hated them. My brothers would try to show me how to do them, and I was so uncomfortable on my back. I couldn't figure out how to place the bar lower. Like my brothers would put the bar lower, but they were both quite a bit older than me, so they had some muscle. They had some trap and some rear delt, and I had nowhere to put the bar. So I'd put the bar like on my neck, and then I would round over every time I came up out of the bottom of a squat. But over time, I learned how to squat for myself. I got taught by some of the best people in the world. I started to develop like a wider stance squat, and it got all the way to the point where I knew got all the way to the point where like I created shoes with Reebok for squats. Like it got out of control because I started understanding every little aspect of like screwing your feet into the ground and these like little finer points. But man, there's nothing more fun than learning something.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing more fun than kind of sucking at something, but then starting to get it, but then starting to master it. Like it's got to feel amazing in jiu-jitsu. It's got to feel so good. These people were just destroying you, and then you start to pass a couple people up. And then, you get better and better. And then the gym starts to, part like the Red Sea as you walk in. All of a sudden, everyone's like, "Oh man, look at that! I got to go." No one wants to roll with you or anything like that. Like mastering something, man, it feels so good.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily think that you or I think that we're going to like master all these things that we're doing or that we're trying. But we know that we know that it's low-hanging fruit for us to at least get better at them.
Mm.
For you to juggle a kettlebell, maybe at first you can't juggle it. Maybe at first you're uncoordinated. Maybe at first it's a little weird. You work on it over time. All of a sudden, over a period of time, it starts to look fluid. All of a sudden, that 300-pound sandbag starts to move a little smoother. All of a sudden, that rope flow that you were doing, you don't look stiff and tight. You're able to flow with a song. You're able to move really well. So it's a cool thing to think about. When I think about these things, oftentimes I am excited and motivated by the fact that I'm like, what if I do this for the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah.
That's what gets me fired up.
All right, Mark, you're getting leaner and leaner, but you always enjoy the food you're eating. So how you doing it?
I got a secret, man. It's called Good Life Protein.
Okay, tell me about that.
I've been doing some Good Life Protein. We've been talking on the show for a really long time of certified Piedmontese beef, and you can get that under the umbrella of Good Life Proteins, which also has chicken breast, chicken thighs, sausage, shrimp, scallops, all kinds of different fish, salmon, tilapia. The website has nearly any kind of meat that you can think of. Lamb is another one that comes to mind. And so I've been utilizing and kind of using some different strategy, kind of depending on the way that I'm eating. So if I'm doing a keto diet, I'll eat more fat, and that's where I might get the sausage, and I might get their 80-20 grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef. I might get bacon. And there's other days where I kind of do a little bit more bodybuilder style, where the fat is, might be like 40 grams or something like that. And then I'll have some of the leaner cuts of the certified Piedmontese beef.
This is one of the reasons why neither of us find it hard to stay in shape, because we're always enjoying the food we're eating. And protein, you talk about protein leverage all the time. It's satiating and helps you feel full.
I look forward to every meal. And I can surf and turf,
Yeah.
I could cook up some, chicken thighs or something like that and have some shrimp with it, or I could have some steak. I would say, the steak, it keeps going back and forth for me on my favorites. So it's hard for me to lock one down, but I really love the bavette steaks.
Yeah.
And then I also love the ribeyes as well.
You can't go wrong with the ribeyes. So guys, if you guys want to get your hands on some really good meat, you can head to goodlifeproteins.com and use code POWER for 20% off any purchases made on the website, or you can use code POWERPROJECT to get an extra 5% off if you subscribe and save to any meats that are a recurring purchase.
This is the best meat in the world.
And there's a few things there. Man. First, the novelty aspect, because when you use the word novelty, I already know that a lot of people look at novelty as somewhat of a negative thing. And the negative context of novelty is that you're just hopping from thing to thing. You never stick with anything. You're just this person that never sticks anything out, and it's just you're looking for the new.
I've been with my wife for over 20 years.
Right?
That's gotta be something.
Right? It's got to be something, right? But this is where I think it's a little bit twisted to think that novelty is purely bad. Especially when it comes to your physical practice, right? Novelty.
It's been 25 years. Sorry.
Right. There you go. Good.
I was just thinking, I'm like, I think we got married in 2000.
Yeah. Novelty with the partner is not great, but depending on the type of relationship you have. But when it comes to physical practices, I don't look at novelty as being a negative, because it's like I'm not going to say you. I want to have different physical capacities with what my body's able to do, right? I've done a lot of strength training, and if I just continued to just beat the drum of strength training, I wouldn't, be very good at jujitsu. I wouldn't have some of the movement ability I currently have if I didn't venture out to try to find my weaknesses. Because you mentioned there are certain things that you're bad at, but you're bad at them right now when you're starting. When I started rope flow a few years ago, I was clunky. I wasn't good. When I started jump roping, when I started kettlebell flow, when I started working with clubs and maces, I wasn't very good at all. I looked pretty shitty. And I think that's when somebody starts trying to pick up a new practice or skill, that's the first level of friction. The friction of not being good is the thing that makes them think, oh, this is not for me. I am going to stop. But it's rare that many people take a new thing that they're not great at because, again, when it comes to strength training and bodybuilding and powerlifting, if I choose to just go down that path, I can become very good at it, right? And that's my strength. But all these other movement abilities were not natural for me. It wasn't great for my body to move in those ways. My body didn't have those physical capacities to be able to get into those ranges, to be able to do so fluidly. But building the skill over years, right? It's definitely played massive dividends, even when it comes to the way that I now move when I'm doing jujitsu. And you mentioned the thing about mastery. And I think mastery is a very interesting thing because I think this is some of the reason why when somebody starts and they get into lifting, they maybe get kind of stuck focusing on purely that. Because when you've built such a high level of proficiency, to move to something else, like you moved into running, where that is not the strength of what the capacity you've built over the decades, right? But you realize that there's just this big glaring weakness and you have a decision to make. Can I take some time and develop this skill and be okay with being bad at it for now and maybe get to a level of mastery over time? Or will I stay with what I'm doing? Because when I was talking about when it comes to mastery is this, I've been doing jujitsu for, it'll be 10 years in December. I tap a vast majority of people that I work with, but have I mastered jujitsu? No. I think one of the coolest things was when I went to this Origin Immersion camp recently, getting this instruction from all these other world-class instructors and just seeing all these cool additions of technique and these things that I haven't thought about in these 10 years that just like, ooh, I added those things to my game and boom, another little opening or idea fled through, right? And I even notice that stuff as I do rope flow and clubs. Like with these being movement skills, there are always new things to develop. Even when I get to doing rope flow for 10 years, kettlebell flow, all these things for 10 years, there will still be things that I can probably add to that skill or find out that skill. Same thing with sandbags, that it's one of those things where I think mastery is somewhat of a kind of an illusion. You can reach super high levels of proficiency, but you almost don't want to say that you are a master of something because I think that's one of the places where you stop developing the skill.
There's always room, yeah.
There's always room. There's always room. But this I'm super excited to do certain types of movement each day because I have a lot of options. And I think that's why I don't need to motivate myself for some of these things. We talked about removing friction, which is a big deal. I have removed a lot of friction when it comes to my movement practices. I have things in my car, things at home. I have things laying around almost everywhere that I frequent, right? But the second thing is I have different skills that I can see progress in, So if I don't feel like working with the sandbag on a certain day, I can work with my club, I can work with a bell, I can work with a rope, and I can see some sort of change and movement, progression there. You know what I mean? Where I don't, my idea of like, am I making progress isn't just on the one thing I'm doing. And on certain days I see it with jujitsu, certain sweeps work better in class, etc. Boom, I'm making progress. So it's good to have different skills, and if you've been lifting for a super long time, I think it's in your best interest, especially when it comes to your physical practice, to find something that you don't feel you're totally natural at or great at and just chip away at it. Don't have to make it a crazy routine that you do an hour each day. Just chip away at it a little bit and see yourself progress because now you have different things you can progress with.
I think it's Jim Rohn. He says, while you're working on making a living, you're also in the background working on making a fortune. And you can kind of think about in your own life with your skill sets, you have these underhand pitches that you can throw yourself and you can feel really good.
Yeah.
He said, I got awesome legs. My legs are super strong. Any day I want, I can go in the gym and do a leg workout, and I'm proficient at it. I can leg curl really heavy. I can leg extension really heavy. I could squat really heavy. But maybe my, bench press sucks or whatever it might be, right? So you can work on the thing that you're already good at to make yourself feel good, make yourself feel great, to give yourself that opportunity to feel good about yourself, and then sneak in some of the stuff that you suck at. And the stuff that you suck at over time is going to get better and better and better. And when I was talking about mastery, there's type of mastery like within sport. Like the Russians would define mastery like you master a sport, right? And they had like levels, and they would say, okay, in gymnastics, if someone could do, I'm going to make up a number, someone could do 40 pull-ups, then they've mastered the amount of pull-ups they need for the ring exercise of gymnastics. Like they don't need to spend any more time on it.
Yeah.
So they kind of check that box. And so that's kind of what I meant by mastery, because the Russians developed like specific numbers. They might say a 200 kilo snatch, at this body weight represents that you're absolutely incredible at that lift, and that you don't have to necessarily, you're going to have to bring up other capacities to get better at that same exercise.
Yeah.
I have some friends that they've been working on some running, and they both do high rocks. And, in high rocks, you do like, you run a certain amount of, you run a certain distance throughout the race, but you're doing like wall balls, you're doing like a row, you're doing all these other exercises. There's like 8 different movements, and in between those movements, you're running like 800 meters or something like, I forget the exact distances.
Okay.
They had a hard time running fast. And so what I told them, it's a couple, and what I told them was, it's Desiree and Zach Beckham. And what I told them was, maybe you guys shouldn't really bother to try to run fast. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, neither one of you have a real proficiency with running. Zach, former military, so he used to run, but Zach is 6'5", and he's like 250. So we talked about, okay, maybe a little weight loss would help. He has a great physique, but I was like, you just weighing less would probably be helpful because you're a big boy. It's going to be tough. So he did that. He worked on losing a little bit of weight, and I said, slow down your runs quite a bit. Let's work at this from a different angle, because kind of to your point about if you focus in on like one thing, the one thing that you're focused on, there's still other aspects of it that you can work on to make yourself way better.
Yeah.
I think bodybuilders do this amazing, because bodybuilders will get super shredded. They'll get like 4% body fat. They'll get on stage, but then the next time they get on stage, they're like 2 or 3 pounds heavier. They're a little bit more. Most of what you're going to see on their Instagram is Desiree's boobs. So it's a good follow. Can I get a hey now? These are good friends of mine, good people.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway, by going a different route and by running longer distances, they now have both got themselves way faster. And Zach told me the other day, he's like, I just ran 10 miles and did a 10-minute mile pace the entire time.
Congratulations, Zach.
I'm like, dude, that's freaking wild.
Being that big and heavy, doing that is impressive.
That's what I said. I was like, that's absolutely nuts. So sometimes you're going to have, not always, but you're probably going to have to try new things in order to get yourself oriented in the right direction. And, these guys, they love picking up like sandbags, and you can kind of see Desiree doing that. She loves all the strongman style stuff. But you're going to have to attack things a little differently. And I think it's just more fun. Maybe some people would rather just kind of do the same thing all the time. I know some people like their routines.
Yeah.
And I think routines are great. I think they're really important. And somebody asked me the other day about like programming, and they're like, do you have like an outline of your program? Like, I don't really follow anything. I just kind of follow my intuition. Now, I've been doing this for a really long time, so I feel like I can kind of play myself from the inside out, if that makes any sense, like a puppet master to some degree. I can go in and kind of and feel, almost like what I need, which is not really true, but it's the way that I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like I can figure out what I need for a particular day. There's some days where like, hey, you big dumb idiot, like you don't need another bench press session. You've done a lot of them and you've gotten good at bench pressing. So maybe you should work on something different. But there's some days where it's like, hey, you're really proficient at bench press and it's a lot of fun. So why don't you go bench press?
Those bounce. Oh, I missed it. I was talking about your
medicine balls. Medicine. Oh.
Your titties.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You know,
they're bouncy.
Mark, the way I look at programs, because I'm working on a few programs for people in the Stronger Human. But the thing is I don't want people to stick to those, especially because the people in there aren't getting ready for a powerlifting meet or a bodybuilding show. I think if you're a lifting athlete, meaning you're an Olympic lifter, you're a power lifter, you maybe CrossFit, right? Some very kind of almost level of strict programming can be very beneficial to keep in check in terms of the way you're recovering from session to session, to make sure you're going to be able to hit certain high squats, certain numbers on your deadlifts on certain days and certain weeks. That's where I think programs are essential. But when you're someone who is, let's say that you're trying to move better, you're trying to get stronger for something else. I think a lot of people are trying to, if they're not playing a sport, they just want to do this strength training stuff for life, then you can kind of like, you can do a program, but then you can look at another program and take elements from it and add it into some of the stuff you do on any given day. And over time, the thing is you'll learn that these different programs have different skills that you're going to kind of learn how to manipulate. Let's say like your scaps are feeling a little bit tight and restricted. So you go and you do a little bit of club work because you know that the inertia from the club is going to pull you apart and you'll feel better. Let's say that you notice that your elbow's feeling kind of, you got some golfer's elbow, but you know you can pull on some of the isometric work you've done in the past and those isometrics are going to heal your elbow. Does that mean you have to do an isometrics program? No, but you have the understanding of what isometrics is going to do for that joint. That's going to get you being able to do what you want to do again, right? Okay, you know that you want to develop a little bit more leg strength for what you're doing in your sport. And you have these different skills of doing stuff with barbells, doing stuff with sandbags, doing stuff with kettlebells. So you know you can do different types of squats to elicit that type of response from your body. Does that mean you have to do a squat every day program or a program that's focused on, upper lower push-pull legs? No, it just means that you know how to pull on when you need to start progressing your squats a little bit. Again, this I think is the nature of getting a program. Not to, and if you want to do the program verbatim and follow it to the T, you can. But I think
maybe that's a good place to start.
It's a great place to start.
When you're starting, like mimicking is really nice.
Absolutely.
I know you've been talking about like getting into some acting, and that's usually how someone will work on acting. Is they'll say, pretend you're Tom Cruise in this role, and then you try to, because you're not sure, you don't have your own style yet, when somebody raps or someone sings or someone plays a guitar, they try to just play the song the exact way that the guy plays the song. But as somebody develops a skill and a mastery, someone plays a song, they do a cover, and you're like, wait, that's better than the original.
Yeah.
That was amazing. So it takes a lot of skill to be able to do something like that. And maybe in the beginning with programming, maybe you are just kind of following blindly.
Yes. But I think that's okay in the beginning, because I don't want anyone that's listening to think that they do not have the skill to be their own coach. Like, seriously, don't ever allow yourself to think that you cannot handle your own programming as time goes by. Because I think some people get so set on like, oh, I need this guy's program. That's fine.
I don't think either one of us have conventional training. I mean, maybe you do.
I had certifications in the past, but like, honestly, my certs didn't teach me, like, they didn't teach me the things I
learned a lot from YouTube and from people in person, and so
a lot of different books, learning from a lot of different people, just learning and putting these things into practice. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But anybody can do that. That's what I'm saying. It's like it just takes time. But as you know, if anybody listening has been training for a few years, cool. But if you've been doing stuff for 5, 8, 10, 12 years, I mean, at this point, you can learn something and then just pull it into your physical practice, because I think at some point your practice is going to be unique to yourself and your goals. You might be someone who's, again, interested in doing some running. So the thing is you're going to have to manage the fatigue from your runs and your strength training sessions. But that's not a very hard thing to do when you've learned. Or you're doing jujitsu. So you're going to need to learn how to manage the fatigue from that and the other stuff that you're doing, right? And the program that I made for those athletes can be a guide. You can follow it verbatim. But my goal is that, like, you've ran it a little bit, and then you start adding in things that you're interested in into some of the general principles that I've laid out in that program. I don't want you to do it forever. I want you to, like you always say, go towards the things that you're interested in,
right?
You know?
Oh man, it makes it so simple when you go towards those things.
Yeah.
We know from bodybuilding, we learn a lot from bodybuilding, but we learn from bodybuilding that when someone is in a massive caloric deficit and they are also doing a lot of exercise, that yes, they're going to get really lean, but the motivation goes down a lot.
100%. Yeah.
The motivation to go to the gym, just all of it, your libido, your motivation for sex. Some men would think to themselves, man, that's never going to, I can't even imagine that my sex drive would ever be low for even 10 seconds, right?
It can be, trust me.
It can be, yeah.
You won't even want to think about it, honestly.
Yeah, you castrate yourself, basically.
Yep.
With low calories or whatever it is that you're doing for a long period of time. So it's important to understand, just as I mentioned earlier, that sleep can be something to assist with keeping you motivated, with being able to find that energy to go and do the things in the first place, just feeling well rested. Your food is also really important. It could be as simple as making sure you have some carbohydrate. It could be as simple as making sure you're eating enough calories. It could be as simple as salt. We've talked a lot about electrolytes. These are all really important factors. If you're doing hypertrophy workouts and you're looking to gain more muscle mass and you weigh 200 pounds and you're consuming, 75 grams of protein every day, you're probably going to be pretty sore.
Yeah.
And that feeling of soreness, it can kind of be motivating, but it's kind of a demotivated because you're like, man, my shit's still really sore and I'm supposed to do this, and this today. And so your food's a big factor. Let's not forget about the value of a training partner. And let's not forget about the value of somebody else's energy.
Yeah.
So if you're meeting with somebody here and there at the gym, or they're coming over to your house, you're going to their house, they got a couple kettlebells or whatever it might be, the person either is motivating to you or they're not. They're either motivating to you or they're like, telling you that they can't make it, and like, they're an unreliable training partner, because you can have that too, where it can be like frustrating. But man, if you can find somebody that's a good training partner, or kind of a separate topic is a good trainer or coach.
Yeah.
Trainer or coach, you go into like a CrossFit environment, you have kind of more of a coach than just like a trainer. Those are all really great things. But man, a really good friend or training partner or buddy that, like, even if that friend just is more down for the walks or more down for a ride on the bike, it's still something. And so, and that's going to help, to me, that helps keep, I have so many friends that do stuff from more of a communal standpoint than anything. And they don't really care about working out. My wife and her friends, my wife's friends, now they like working out. But my wife, a couple, maybe like a year and a half or 2 years ago, she just started inviting some people over to our home gym, and she'd have like 1 or 2 people. And then before you know it, now she's got like 8, 10, sometimes 12 people there.
Damn.
It's like a whole full-on training session going on over there. She took over, that's supposed to be my gym.
I will never go to a doctor ever again about my general health. All they want to do is put you on pills.
Really well said there by Dana White. Couldn't agree with him more. A lot of us are just trying to get jacked and tan. A lot of us just want to look good, feel good. And a lot of the symptoms that we might acquire as we get older, some of the things that we might have, high cholesterol or these various things, it's amazing to have somebody looking at your blood work as you're going through the process, as you're trying to become a better athlete, somebody that knows what they're doing. They can look at your cholesterol. They can look at the various markers that you have, and they can kind of see where you're at, and they can help guide you through that.
And there's a few aspects too where it's like, yes, I mean, no shade to doctors, but a lot of times they do want to just stick you on medication. A lot of times there is supplementation that can help with this. At Merrick Health, these patient care coordinators are going to also look at the way you're living your lifestyle, because there's a lot of things you might be doing that if you just adjust that, boom, you could be at the right levels, including working with your testosterone.
And there's so many people that I know that are looking for, they're like, hey, should I do that? They're very curious. And they think that testosterone is going to all of a sudden kind of turn them into the Hulk. But that's not really what happens. It can be something that can be really great for your health, because you can just basically live your life a little stronger, just like you were maybe in your 20s and 30s.
Mm-hmm. And this is the last thing to keep in mind, guys. When you get your blood work done at a hospital, they're just looking at like these minimum levels. At Merrick Health, they try to bring you up to ideal levels for everything you're working with. Whereas if you go into a hospital and you have 300 nanograms per deciliter of test, you're good, bro, even though you're probably feeling like shit. At Merrick Health, they're going to try to figure out what things you can do in terms of your lifestyle. And if you're a candidate, potentially TRT. So these are things to pay attention to get you to your best self.
And what I love about it is a little bit of the back and forth that you get with the patient care coordinator. They're dissecting your blood work. It's not like you just get this email back and it's just like, hey, try these 5 things. Somebody's actually on the phone with you, going over every step and what you should do. Sometimes it's supplementation, sometimes it's TRT, and sometimes it's simply just some lifestyle habit changes.
All right, guys, if you want to get your blood work checked and also get professional help from people who are going to be able to get you towards your best levels, head to merrickhealth.com and use code POWERPROJECT for 10% off any panel of your choice.
She took over my spot. But man, like those people don't want to miss because they want to be there for each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that definitely does make a very big difference. If you can find some type of community of people that you can like do something with in person, that could be also like your family. You know what I mean? I got my mom a rucksack recently, so that like when we take walks, right, she can have a little bit of weight on her. My sister can have a little bit of weight on her, right?
That's cool.
But I think that's one of those easy additions to family time, right? Because you probably go and move with your family. So working out is good with the people around you. But then, I mean, when it comes to some of these other activities, is there a way that you can make it serve you? Because walking is beneficial. I don't want people to think that you shouldn't go walk. You know what I mean? But you know, I think we've had different people come onto this podcast. Chris Hinshaw talked about like what rucking or using weight on walks for your conditioning.
I found it motivating, the stuff that you told me, walking with I think every time I show it, I think people think it's a joke,
dude,
because it looks funny, because it looks like I got a giant sombrero on my head, but it feels awesome. And I'll put it on my head. I'll put it on my shoulder. I'll carry it, like all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah. It's like, you know, that's a communal activity in and of itself, walking with somebody. But whether you like you mentioned, have take a little bit of a sandbag with you, or you have like a rucksack that you put on, and you have maybe 10, 20, 30 pounds or whatever. These are things that over time will actually make a very big difference for your body. But it's like, it becomes more fun.
Yeah, yesterday we did some tire flips. Me and a couple of my friends. That's my friend Oel, the one I was telling you about. Him and his brother. His brother, so he's 260 and his brother's like 330. They're both beasts, and we're just like effing around on this particular day. But yesterday we're doing like tire flips, and then we would jump on the tire and then jump down from the tire. But when you jumped on the tire, like, all right, you got to do a dance at the top. I'm like, oh, great, you know. But it's just finding people to train with and having like fun with it.
Yeah.
Like the workout yesterday was actually really hard. We did a lot of stuff. We did sandbag stuff. We did a bunch of hack squats, the way that Stan showed us with the pad. We did a bunch of box squats, which I haven't done a box squat in a while. So the workout was like, it wasn't crazy intense, but it was difficult. It was challenging, but it's fun. You know, and the workout I did with the Mexican wrestling mask, like we're doing like farmers carries and stuff, and we're just totally I don't know, just kind of losing yourself a little bit, just like
luchador.
Yeah, just doing some stuff that's a little different, maybe a little weird, but just having a good time.
But that's why I also like, again, this is why I think if you have a gym membership, cool, but some of these pieces just kind of allow, like, you know, It allows for you to do stuff at your place with people in an easier way. You have a few sandbags, you have a few bells, maybe you have a club or two, right? It's just like you can get some really, really good movement in with each other, and it's fun.
A sandbag is like an equalizer too, because your buddy that weighs like 180 or something might oddly be good at it.
Yeah.
And it, maybe they're not lifting the same exact weight as you, but it can be, I don't know, man, this stuff could be so exciting when you aren't afraid to implement new stuff.
Let me talk about the plight of being taller with sandbags. I don't think people realize how far that bag is on the ground when you're taller and you have to lift it up. It is harder, okay? Because you see some of these cats who are like 5'5", right? They get this bag, they bring it to their shoulder. It's like, that wasn't even a distance,
Do you have somebody in particular you're aiming us at?
No, I'm just making excuses. It's
that kind of
put my sandbag on a sandbag, right?
That kind of stuff is kind of funny because it's both beneficial and makes things harder. Like Brian Shaw,
oh my God,
is super gifted at lifting stones. I think Brian's lifted the heaviest stone ever. I think
so. Yeah.
And then put it over something. I think there's like a certain height or whatever. I want to say he did like 440 or maybe 500 pounds.
And he's like 6'6".
He's 6'8".
He's 6'8".
Yeah, Brian Shaw is 6'8".
Oh my God.
Yeah, I remember the first time I met him. He was like getting out of his car and I was like walking across the street towards him. And as I got closer and closer, I'm like, I'm like meeting like a dinosaur. Like this guy is like, I never, like, it made me nervous.
Yeah.
I was like, this guy's going to go poof and just like knock me right into the ground.
Made me feel like a child. It's so uncomfortable.
Oh my God. He's huge. But anyway, his arms are long. Mm-hmm. He was a basketball player and he's super tall. And his arms are long, so his arms actually are kind of an advantage to a certain degree. So you can't really just use height as a total excuse. And saying,
it's still a thing. It's still a factor.
It is definitely
on that fucking hill.
It is definitely a factor. I think it's not always easy to like. It's not always easy just to like change gyms or to just explore a different gym. But that's another thing I would really recommend. If you're there's not a I don't think maybe there's a few, but there's not a lot of areas in this country where there's not some pretty good gyms, at least within like X radius. And what I mean by good gyms is like, it might not even be a gym. It might be someone's home. You might have to like dig to find this shit, but like you could be in Minnesota, you could be anywhere. And you're going to find people that like to do farmers carries. You're going to find people that like to do stones. You're going to find people that like to power lift, Olympic lift. You might not be able to find all of those things all in one, but you most likely are going to find at least one of those things somewhere.
Yeah.
And so find a good community. And if you're at a gym, like if I say, hey man, what do you think of your gym? And you're just like, well, I don't know. Then change gyms, try to look at a different gym. Maybe you are in some weird area that doesn't have other facilities, but it's rare nowadays for gyms not to be outfitted like a university, like a strength and conditioning type of place that you can go and lift at. Mm-hmm. I know here in Sacramento, there's a bunch of different spots where there's turf, there's sleds, there's prowlers, there's, some places even have, farmer carry handles, like all this stuff.
Yeah.
So try to find a spot. Maybe you don't have all that access to all those things, but try to find a spot that's cool, that has access to good stuff. And if you've never seen that before, try to go to a powerlifting competition. Try to go to a bodybuilding show. You go to a bodybuilding show and you say, hey, where's everybody around here train? They'll say, this is the best spot. It's got the best machines and so forth. That to me is super motivating. When you walk into a gym and it's got, really cool stuff. It also has people there that have similar goals. Not everybody in there is, I guess if you are older, if you're 80 and there's everybody else in there is 80, that's probably a motivator. But if you're, 30 and you're fired up and you want to do stuff that's intense, training at the like racquetball place that has like some weights probably isn't the best spot for you. So find somewhere that has some energy.
Yeah.
I first started hearing about transcriptions from Thomas DeLauer.
Yep.
And, Thomas is somebody, it's an animal with working out. You got a chance to work out with him. I worked out with him. And he's kind of always on the front lines of like, finding out about these new companies that have cool things. But I didn't really realize that Transcriptions was the first company to put out methylene blue. And now look at methylene blue. It's so popular. It's everywhere.
It's one of those things. If you guys listen to this podcast, you know I'm very iffy with the supplements that I take because there's a lot of shady stuff out there.
You got to be careful.
The great thing about Transcriptions is that when people want to get methylene blue, usually they'll go on Amazon, they're going on these other sites. It's not third-party tested. It's not dosed. A lot of people end up with toxicity from the blue that they get because there's no testing of it. Transcriptions, they have third-party testing for the products. It's dosed, so you know easily what exact dose of methylene blue you're getting in each troche. So you're not making some type of mistake. There's not going to be anything in it. It's safe.
You can have it dissolve and you can turn your whole world blue if you want, or you can just swallow it. They have two different types of methylene blue. They have one that is, I believe, dosed at 16 milligrams, and they have another one that's dosed at 50 milligrams. So make sure you check the milligrams. I don't recommend anybody start at 50 milligrams, but the 16 I feel is very safe. You can also score the troches, and you can break them up into smaller bits.
Yeah, that's what I do.
And in addition to that, on top of the methylene blue, they have a lot of other great products and stuff as well. They got stuff for sleep. They got stuff for calming down, all kinds of things.
I gotta say, I use it about 2 or 3 times a week. I use it before jiu-jitsu, and the cool thing that I've noticed, and I've paid attention to this over the past few months, is that after sessions, I don't feel as tired. So it's almost like I've become more efficient with just the way I use my body in these hard sessions of grappling. And it's like, cool, that means that, I could go for longer if I wanted to, and my recovery is better affected. It's pretty great.
I know Dr. Scott Schur, we had him on the podcast, and he talked quite a bit about how he recommends methylene blue to a lot of the athletes that he works with.
Yeah.
And they're seeing some profound impacts. And one of the things I've heard about it is that it can enhance red light. So those of you doing red light therapy, or those of you that have some opportunities to get out into some good sunlight, it might be a good idea to try some methylene blue before you go out on your walk or run outside or whatever activity it is that you're going to do outside.
And this stuff is great, but please, first off, they have that stuff for staying calm. They have stuff for sleep. But remember, this stuff isn't a substitution for sleep. This isn't a substitution for taking care of your nutrition. This is supposed to be an add-on to all the things that we already should be doing, and it's going to make things so much better if you're doing everything else too.
And I think this is just a little different too than just adding some magnesium to your diet. I think this is a little different than...
Yeah.
Treat these things appropriately. Make sure you do some of your own research. But
if you're taking medications, SSRIs, you better talk to your doctor first. Don't be popping these things.
And if you're taking any medications at all, it'd be good to double, triple, quadruple check and make sure that you're safe. Transcriptions has a lot of great things that you need, so go and check out their website when you have the opportunity. Strength is never weakness, weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.
I think the last thing that I'll mention is, because, every day won't be the same. Some days just have way more stressors than others. Some days, like you mentioned earlier, you just didn't get sleep, and now your body doesn't want to load a lot of weight, right? So have some practices that can just allow you to get just like a win each day, right? So for me, I have that practice for me as the rope because it makes me feel better afterwards, but it's something I can do every day despite however I might feel. I might have had really bad sleep. I might have flown to some place and my body's not feeling great. But I have that thing that allows me to move, feel good, and I still feel as if I've done something today that has fed my body and I feel good, right? Even though I might not have lifted or whatever, I have something. So whatever that, it doesn't have to be the rope. It could be some calisthenics. It could be whatever that practice is for you. Have something that allows you to get a physical win each day, because I think even if you don't consider yourself to be an athlete that does a sport and you don't think I don't do a sport, I'm not a big athlete, whatever, well, you're still a human. You still need to move. That fact doesn't change for any single person on this planet. We all need to move. We all need to get in some type of movement for our health and our longevity. So you need something each day, not 3 times a week, not 4 times a week, not 2 times a week. You need something each day that can be a physical win. Find something that can be that for you, and make sure you do it, because that'll be one of those things that, again, just allows you to make that consistent progress in whatever other things that you're doing. Just because you have that one thing you did each day that got you physically a little bit closer to those other goals you're trying to reach.
I think, over the years, I've learned a lot of I learned to like take my time with a lot of stuff. I've been very disappointed in my life in many different things that I've like tried. And it's been frustrating. Like you just don't quite get to where you want to get to. I loved football, and that was something I really enjoyed a lot. I trained for football and tried to get better, and only got so good and only got so far.
Yeah.
Frustrating. Did the same thing with professional wrestling. Ran into a bunch of injuries. Ran into a bunch of different things. It wasn't like I had injuries that were completely wiping me out, but you're just in a lot of like pain. Your neck hurts a lot, your back, and it's a tough sport. And each of those sports, I did put a lot into them. I put a lot of effort into them, but I think because I had lifting and I continually try to add something else in, it made it easier for me to deal with. I was just telling you about running. Like, I don't know, maybe it takes me 3 years to get my running back or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. That's not that big a deal to me. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful that I'm lifting and doing the lifting that I'm doing, and that I've learned the skill sets that I have, and that my whole entire rest of my body feels awesome. Yeah. My elbows feel great. My shoulders feel great. My hips feel great. My quads, hamstrings, like everything, calves, everything feels good. I got my left heel that kind of hurts, and it's not ready to run yet. Like, so what? I have all these other things that I can do. I know that you've had some injuries in soccer and stuff like that. All this stuff is really disappointing, but it allows you to say to yourself, you know what? I don't feel right. I'm not going to go to that jiu-jitsu tournament. Like, you were sick, I think, a couple days ago or whatever. Yeah. I had the same bullshit sickness.
Did you catch it after I had it?
No, I had it.
Did I give it to you?
I had it before you had it.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe I gave it to you by accident. Sorry.
No, I don't think so. You didn't give it to me.
But damn, I think other people, though, because they maybe haven't developed some of these other skill sets, maybe they don't feel as good about some of the things that maybe they haven't accomplished or don't feel accomplished in some of the stuff that they're doing. And so they feel they have to really force some of these things. Like, I'm not going to force stuff until I'm ready to come back to it. And I've learned that over the years by having some disappointment. But the motivation stays high for me because I can see progress. And I think that this is something that Lane was talking about recently. Lane Norton was talking about with weight loss. He said, people tend to stay on their diet when they see almost immediate progress, which is almost a little counterintuitive to, like, you got to stick to stuff, be consistent, it's slow, But if that person, that client, or it's you or whoever, if you didn't lose, 5 pounds in the month, it might be a little harder for you to stick to it. And so what gets to be tough about what we're talking about is you're not going to just do some lateral raises for the month and, like, all of a sudden shoulders are popping, right?
No.
You're not going to really see that kind of progress. The only way you can kind of get that kind of progress or get that immediate feedback sometimes is with a diet where someone goes, hey, like, you lost some weight. Somebody notices almost like in your face, kind of almost instantly. If you lost 8-10 pounds, you lose a little bloat, lose a little fluff. Somebody will notice that on you. But you have to, and so when it comes to all this different stuff that we're doing, like, I'm messing around with maces, I'm messing around with kettlebells, I'm doing tire flips, I'm doing farmer's carries. I got a PR in a farmer's carry the other day. I did like 180 pounds per hand. I'm starting to get closer to my own body weight per hand without straps or anything. Like, shit, that's a kind of a cool goal. So I have a goal. I have these kind of like indicators, these things that I'll hit, these things that I'll do, where I'm like, that's working. So for you with rope flow, it's not like you do rope flow and you're not noticing anything from it. You have noticed some stuff from it, right? And you've had feedback and you've had these indicators where maybe you go to jiu-jitsu. I think you said that maybe you have a tendency to want to do stuff more to one side versus another, and you're able to bring up that coordination and that strength on that other side, right?
Exactly. None of the things I think I do, I'm doing it just because it's new. I'm doing it because, like, I see the benefit that it brings. And with the rope, It's like, again, you're swinging a rope around, but you're also on the background developing rotational ability on both sides of your body. My sport of jiu-jitsu, it's a leverage and rotational sport. So I noticed that immediately with the way that I move when I do things on the mat. But, you know, with, for example, the clubs and maces, there are other benefits. But one thing I notice, especially when I do 3-minute, 4-minute sets, is the amount of you know, stress that happens on my wrists and my forearms, a stress that I do not get when I do other things. And the only time where I feel a stress that's similar would probably be like actually years ago when I was a lower belt in jiu-jitsu and I'd be death gripping things and my grip would that's the last time I felt a stress like that on this whole area. So not only is it doing stuff for my shoulders and my scapula and that strength, but it's also strengthening my wrists and forearms in terms of that strength endurance. So I realized like, oh, okay, this is 8 kilos, but maybe in 3 years, I'm able to do this with 12 or 14 kilos. Like how much stronger is my grip going to be, right, as I'm developing this? So it's like all these things are giving me benefit. But I think a big thing that I realized too is like there is a fairly immediate feedback of feeling better. You know, I mean, I think if you can zone in, especially when lifting, on like after a lifting session, how your body feels. Like sometimes you might feel kind of tired, but you feel like you did something, right? But when it comes to these other things, it's like the feeling I have afterwards is my body feels good, right? And that's a positive feedback loop for me to continue to develop all of these other skills.
Yeah, we have so much more intuition than we give ourselves credit for. And now I'm not talking about you and I'm talking about all of us.
Yes.
And I think it was great what you mentioned about you can be your own coach. You know, why not you? Why does it have to be, you know, someone else that creates or makes up an exercise? Who's to say you can't make up something? Maybe it is something that someone's already done before, but it's something that feels good for you. It feels right for you.
And you figured it out for yourself. Maybe, yeah, somebody has done it before, but you figured it out. It feels good and your body likes it.
Right. And then, you know, I think just kind of back to the indicators, just so you guys kind of understand and know, you know, I don't necessarily program anything, but I will eliminate stuff if I don't feel like it's doing anything. Now, that might take a while. You know, I might have to give it an honest shot. There's other things that I may abandon because I lose interest in them. I'm just not as excited about them. I'm not as motivated to do them. And I think that's okay too. Like it's okay, you know, especially like if you're sick, if you're injured, going through a hard time in your life, maybe that's not the time to like pick up something frustrating. Maybe that's kind of the time to do what I said earlier, like stick to the stuff you know, stick to the common things. Maybe you're going through a breakup or something. Maybe that's not the time to like try to get shredded. You just take your time, see if you can have some consistency with the gym, get around some good people, do some good positive stuff. I've had friends before where we've talked over nutrition and stuff, and they've kind of told me what's going on in their life. And I'm like, I don't think now's the time, dude. Like, why don't you just like, let's get you to adhere to something so there's not just chaos going on. But I don't think now's the time for some sort of big restriction and for you to like be super dedicated to this thing. Your mental health, you know, might be getting compromised at this moment. So anyway, you need to have some of these things that you test occasionally. You test your 400 meter, you test your mile run, you're going to know whether you are feeling the rope flow, whether you're feeling the effects of the grip training that you've been doing, whether you feel the stuff that you're doing on the tibs or whatever it might be. You're going to start to feel some of the benefits of those things, but it might take a little while.
Yeah.
It might take a few weeks. It might even sometimes take, it might unfortunately take like a couple months. Usually when it comes to aesthetics, those are things that you can normally see a little faster. If it's like just leanness, but if it's muscle growth, like sometimes muscle growth takes a while.
Yeah.
If you're newer to lifting, then of course you get kind of the newbie gains. But I think one of the best things you can do with motivation is to try to just lower the amount of it that you need. You shouldn't always need like a monumental amount of motivation. And I also think it's motivating to, like we're talking about doing new exercises and stuff, maybe a new environment, maybe just travel to a different gym, If you do jujitsu, maybe travel to a different state. Maybe when you're on vacation somewhere, walk into a class somewhere else. Same thing with CrossFit. Same thing with High Rocks. There's communities out there. He's got a community online. I mean, there's a lot of communities that you can be a part of. You can reach out to someone and say, oh, hey, you live in the area, you mind meeting up? And like, maybe we can get a training session in since they like the same stuff that you like. Mm-hmm. These are all things that can keep you fired up, keep you motivated. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.